when we look at the Agenda 2063 or Vision 2030, it's all about the standard of living and the quality of life. So I think this is actually going to be enabled by DLT. Thank you.
Wow, interesting perspectives here. I don't know whether, Andreas, you have a reaction or two on this subject as well?
Yeah, I think I'm the disruptor of the disruptors here today, a bit. So I think one of the aspects that we should not underestimate is the trust of the people as well. It's not only education, but it's also the trust. So do I trust a CBDC in this case? Do I trust any other cryptocurrency? What will happen with this? If I come from this cash-driven kind of economy, here's my gurush, my money, and now it's exchanged for goods, that's an easy trade. Now if I think of what do I need to do now? So I go to a shop, I need to take maybe my mobile phone. How do I do? Like in Nigeria, you do a transfer in a lot of times. So how do I actually transfer? How is the normal trade on the street going to be? Is it going to be like Bitcoin? Is it going to be this currency, that currency? Do I need to go to an exchange first, exchange into the right currency for this, to accept this in? I think there's a lot that also we need to do to make this simpler and easier to trade. Yeah, I think it's a great tool, but I think there's still a lot of work to be done to make it possible for people to trade properly. And I still want to just bring it out again. Just go into the countryside and try to make a trade with the Bitcoin. People will look at you, what is a Bitcoin? Yeah, so we are talking about this here on stage, but I think bringing it there, the education, the trust, and the enablement of doing those trades, I think is going to be a long period of time to make sure that this will all happen.
All right, thanks for that education, trust, and enablement. Definitely. That's why we're also trying to do this so that as many people can get to understand. And by the way, for your information, all our online viewers, make sure you share these YouTube links to everyone who is watching. Now, let me bring you in, Elisa. Would you have a comment or two as well on this subject as well, so that at least we can close it up?
Yeah, I'm gonna be a bit provocative on this topic. So I don't think the real point is about CBDCs or another currency itself. I really think that the main point and the things that can really make the change is the system. What do I mean with that? I give you an example. India, in the last years, they did Matic, who now is called Polygon, and yes, there is a cryptocurrency there, but the system that they create allow to use Ethereum system with lower expense. So it's, for me, the real things that can make the change, the real change in the life of everybody is really to think about outside the box and think about how Africans, entrepreneurs, African governments can really create a system, a different system, which they have done in the past to disrupt finance all the world, that can enable the using of the currency in a cheapest way, in a way that everybody can use it in the real life. So the main point, again, it's not the currency itself. You can create as many currency as you want. Someone will be good, someone will be failed, will be bad. But the point is the system. So how we are going to help entrepreneurs and governments to build a system that is different, that can allow this changing to be all over the place and to be used, as some of you in the panel just said, everywhere in the real life. Okay. So this is, for me, the main point.
Okay, so I want to just get a clarification. Did I hear you, Dr. Iwas, say that CBDCs are a welcome game to hopefully one time having one common currency across Africa? I just wanted to clarify that so I don't accuse you wrongly.
Sorry, could you repeat that question?
I think at some point you mentioned that you would, CBDCs are quite welcome, and you said you would hope that Africa could actually unite and come up with one common one. Is that what you said? I just wanted a clarification.
Okay. So what I said is that we should be open to the ideas of the potential that a CBDC can have, particularly when it comes to dealing with the challenges of intra-African trade and the issue to do with inconvertibility of currency.
Okay.
So that if we are open to the idea, there's a potential that if regions, if countries have a CBDC that works, so if they've explored the CBDCs and they've worked, there are challenges, yes, that can be worked on. There's a potential that we could actually arrive at this monetary union plan that we've for many years tried to achieve in sub-regions. And there's a potential that we could be able to achieve one through the blockchain. Okay, so yes is the answer to that.
All right.
I think I would, maybe if you'd give me a minute just to weigh in very quickly on the same. I think maybe what will happen in the first instance is for all countries, for instance, to either issue their currencies or adopt whichever currencies, decentralized currencies. I think that is what is going to happen for a start. Then secondly, each and every countries have their economic strength. So there's one that has a strong economy compared to the other. Yeah. So I think what needs to happen first is interoperability, so that you're able to convert from one currency to another seamlessly. So for instance, just looking at the number of Kenyan banks with the regional presence in East and Central Africa. So I think maybe they would be the first institutions to actually adopt and ensure there's interoperability between the different markets, so as to reduce the level of friction. We also do understand that we operate in a political environment. So after which is when we are likely now to go to the next level whereby we can have a regional or a continental kind of currency. But at the same time, I would actually want to also just highlight that, for instance, if you're on the Bitcoin network, and you just possibly peg whatever you're selling on the Bitcoin network, and you're able to settle. So I can pay from whichever country. So I think it's a two-pronged approach. And for me, I would want to see how it plays out. Thanks.
Sorry, could I just also add that I'd just like to say, because I've done extensive research on economic and monetary unions on the African continent. Yeah. And so I'd want to say this idea of having a regional, potentially regional central bank digital currency, as we're having the conversation now, it's still quite theoretical. Because from where we are now till that point, I mean, it could take 50 years, it could take 100 years, who knows? There are certain criteria that would need to be fulfilled. So we would have things like economic convergence criteria that would need to be fulfilled. I mean, in a traditional fiat approach to trying to achieve monetary unions, that has been a struggle to achieve. So for example, the West African Monetary Zone agenda to achieve a monetary union has actually been challenged just because, as the earlier panelist mentioned, we haven't really achieved that domestic, if you like, economic convergence to be able to achieve this economic and then monetary union. All of that would need to be in place for all this to happen.
All right.
But in terms of the technology, I feel we should give it a chance in terms of the potential that the technology can help achieve this. I feel there's a need to actually give it a chance rather than stifle it or negate the potential of it. I mean, I've done quite significant work that I'll be happy to share. I'm looking at the time, we could have a whole conference on this. Like you say, there's been a huge debate in previous panels about it. But I think these are conversations that need to be had. They're quite critical for advancement. And also to achieve that overall, under the African Economic Community Treaty, there's an agenda to achieve a unified single currency. We shouldn't throw that away. Yeah. It may happen in the next 100 years, who knows? From where we're at now till that point, there's still significant work that needs to be done in converging the economies. No doubt about that. But these are very interesting times, and I think we need to really embrace the technology. study it, do our research, find out how it can help us as countries, African countries, and also as a continent, rather than stifle it through policies and regulation. I think we really need to be open to the potential that the technology affords.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for that. And, I agree with you, but I can tell you, I think from the previous panelists that we have had as well here, there are certain hurdles we'll need to knock out. Some of them are even external, away from Africa, that would, every good idea has an opposition, because of various interests and the likes. But you know what? You never stop. I think we agreed we're not stopping, and we love the fact that Africa has really taken off when it comes to matters DeFi. Now, I would want to open up the session to audiences. Anyone with a question, a quick reaction? I can see hands going up. Oh my, yes, I think this side is the one that has, in Africa we say anointing, but no worries. So I think I'll take 1, 2, 3 questions. We can react to that before we close with how or what disruptors should do to work with governments to ensure that we have growth in the African economy. So please, I know, you've started with the gentleman. I know the other time you had 4 questions. I'll only allow 1 now, so just choose 1. Go ahead, sir.
All right, thank you so much. Okay, actually it's not really a question, but
comment?
Yes, I'm a believer in the future of CBDCs and the impact it can have, but not because it's maybe something better, but actually because the masses will always follow the supreme voice, even though it's leading them to the gutter. And that's what history has shown us. Because, of course, CBDCs in other countries of Africa can have an impact. But let's look at a country like Kenya. Like right now, everybody embraces M-Pesa. And if I look at CBDCs, there's no big difference between it and M-Pesa. And, well, we know the tug of war that has been going on between central bank and cryptocurrency ever since this discussion started. And as much as, CBDCs and cryptocurrency connect because maybe people are new into it, I don't think actually CBDCs should be part of any DeFi discussion because these are totally centralized monetary system. And actually maybe the only thing here that we can connect it with DeFi is because some of the CBDCs might be running on the blockchain network. And of course, blockchain has nothing so much to do with cryptocurrency. Blockchain has been there for almost 30 years. And well, for me, my opinion, you can comment on this, but I think most governments are trying to take people's attention away, and people should be very careful with this because their freedom is almost being ripped out of their hands just few steps before manifesting it. Because they are trying to tell the people that we are introducing a cryptocurrency for you that maybe will be regulated, but this is not a cryptocurrency. These are totally different, something different. Kenyans are being told that we are introducing another M-Pesa and we are calling it CBDC. It's like Telkom coming with T-Cash and saying that this is going to make a difference. Okay. What difference is going to make here? Maybe in other countries of Africa. That's just my opinion. Thank you.
That's a strong one. That's a strong one, and I appreciate that. But Lamuel is here, and you have on-ground experience of what he's talking about. Would you react to that?
Sure. I think you have very valid concerns. And I think as we are progressing, we are seeing more of privacy being embedded on cryptocurrencies. And I believe even for the CBDCs, they'll also have an element of privacy as well. So the only thing I would want to say, CBDCs it's a good conversation to have since it will open up, especially when it comes to open banking, and value will go to where money will go to where the value is. So that is the first point I would want to point out. Then in terms of the number of players, I think for the e-money with M-Pesa, for instance, there have been quarters who've talked about M-Pesa being very dominant and posing a systemic risk. So the only thing I would see here is that if the CBDC will be decentralized, that will be a plus, and have as many players, so that we remove that element of whereby we have a single point of failure, for instance. So have as many players in the market, encourage more competition. And I think this is one of the ways, possibly, that the central banks are actually looking at, so that to curb that systemic risk. Just on the privacy front, I think we've seen the layer 2 solutions, which are now incorporating privacy, where you can be able to know the value that is moving around, account, but you are not able to identify the users. So it's a thin, or one has to create a very good balance between privacy and traceability, which also incorporates trust.
All right, thanks a lot for that. That's a good comment there. But I had seen another hand. Yes, please.
Hi, my name is Jane. I think I should have probably gone first because after his enthusiastic speech. Now, there's a very heated debate on pro-open banking and anti-open banking, and probably just to prompt the idea of why not collaborate? I mean, we can foster an API ecosystem, banks can open up their transactional data to fintech startups, and each end can essentially benefit, because I don't think this war is going to end of cryptocurrencies wanting to reign and banks wanting to reign, because unbundling of banking services is already here. Banks are being left behind. So I think collaboration probably from a bank perspective.
I hear you, and because I can see, yes, let's hear from Patricia, and then I'll also ask Elisa to comment on that.
All right. So thank you for that question. And why I want to react is I hold the same opinion, because in the end, government is important, and government is a big influencer. They might not be as fast as disruptors. They might not be as technologically advanced or take more risk like the disruptors would. But in reality, what will essentially happen is there has to be a meeting point, or government has to realize that we have to engage this, because what we are doing, and like I said, CBDCs are I find them interesting, because government is saying, we are trying, just give us a bit more time, let's bring this out. But we all know that what the blockchain does is that it has gone 5-10 steps ahead of what the CBDCs will represent. But it's like I always encourage engagement, right? And that's where more ideas, that's where they can see more of the ideas that the disruptors have for the space, more of the ideas, more of the questions that government have around privacy, around how we can have some certain level of control, how does taxes come in. They want all of these questions answered, and a lot of engagement is going to make sure that these things happen. But if there are continuous loggerheads, it's going to be everybody taking their own position and doubling down on it. But eventually, I see a future where government becomes more open to having this conversation, and it will start from the legacy financial institutions, the banks, the financial systems. They have to start saying, how can we get in? How can we improve on our technology? And they have to be open to having these conversations. It's really important.
Okay. I'm interested to ask this question. Are you at Patricia? Has the government of Nigeria tried to ask a question?
No, they asked the question in a different way. They asked the question in a different way. So, most of what we would say is that they became an influencer. So pre-2020, when they stopped financial institutions from dealing with crypto, most people on the street will tell you they didn't even, it took a lot of marketing to get crypto out there. Yeah. But government needs to realize that they are an influencer. If government says yes, everybody is looking in that direction as to, why is government interested in this? Is there any reason? What's the harm? What's the benefit? Yeah. And people aren't robots, right? They are going to make their own discoveries. They're going to check on, why is the government so interested in it? So government is a big influencer, and the fact that they are also coming out to say, let's try something, different, not crypto, centralized, but it's fine, come onto the stage. I think that's the best thing. Okay. More engagement, and that's what I think the point is. Thank you.
So, Elisa, did you have something to react to that question?
Of course. So, well, there is a lot to say about this topic, of course. On one side, I shared the point about decentralization. I'm not a blockchain purist, but I really believe in decentralization, and I really believe that this is the best way to make the change happen. And again, for the currencies of the CBDCs is the same. How do you get all the African country to get the same currency? How the government can do that? That's quite tricky. It's probably easier if a decentralized currency start to spread out in all Africa because it has a sense, it has a purpose in terms of business, it uses a different kind, again, of system and infrastructure. And yes, it's not controlled by a government or a bank, but it can bring the disruption in the market that we want to see in terms of financial inclusion and all this progress. So again, I believe that it's much easier for DeFi to reach this kind of goals rather than the government or the central banks itself.
All right.
On the other hand, we really need to think about how to build a bridge between governments and disruptors. Of course, the government usually tend to over-regulate the entrepreneurs and the projects, and with DeFi will probably happen the same. It's already happening in many countries, but the results is just that you allow entrepreneurs from other countries that are less regulated to invade your market. Okay. And this is clearly something that you don't want. So on the other hand, entrepreneurs, of course, don't want to be regulated and don't trust regulators. They don't are really exciting to talk about regulators. Mm-hmm. So the main point is to build this bridge this must start by the government. So the government needs to start to listen to the entrepreneurs, to what they need and how they can grow and facilitate this growing, not just regulate everything and try to stop because they are scared. Again, there must be a balance and a compromise, but I really believe that the real innovation and the real disruption, the real change in finance in Africa and all over the world can be done by disruptors and entrepreneurs and must be done by them. And I don't believe the government has the capacity to do that.
They should stay away. All right, thanks a lot for that. Thanks a lot for that. I think I would want to, I know there were reactions as well from some other panelists, but allow me to just close on that because I had that just one more hand and I don't want to close you out and then we can come to our closing remarks. So what's your question? Or was it you? Yes, sir.
Thank you so much. My name is Newton.
One question, Newton. Yes, one question.
Actually, it's not a question.
Just ask one. Okay.
All right, thank you so much. So I was looking at maybe the other revolutions that we had, from fire to agriculture, the industrial revolution, and then to the internet, which has brought now this disruption with the blockchain and all this. And we can agree that we are one technology away from a totally different life. I can see that. But at the same time, looking at Africa, at the future of finance in Africa, we learn from one major thing we learn from history is that we don't learn from history. Because if you look at maybe the introduction of the internet, when the www came, we were like very skeptical. We said, you know what? This is 666. This is the mark of the beast. We have to fight it.
This is African, the devil. Okay.
You know, so we were very much like fighting these technologies. And I don't know how maybe Africans are going to adapt to this new system, because we tend to fight what we don't understand. That is my concern. Thank you so much.
That's a good concern, and I want Andres to see whether we can help you with that concern.
Well, I think again, education, trust, and so on is quite important, and I think this is why it's so important to have also communities around this, like off-chain, for example, to make sure that actually the education into the public and into the government is actually done properly. I think that's the massive key changer that will drive this forward, to make sure that we understand it properly and that we actually and learn how to use it as well. I think that's my comment to this one.
Okay, thanks a lot for that. And guys, I have extended this conversation by about 20 minutes because it's quite hot by itself. And I think, I don't know whether it's because it's the last sentiments but also the panelists here are quite engaging. And you can tell, I think I've only utilized 5% of what I would have gotten from each of them. But I want to sort of just get your final submission of what you feel the future of finance in Africa holds. And I would want to start with our keynote address. That was from Dr. Aiwa. What would be your final word to the people watching, to the people here, when you speak about this entire subject? I know there were so many questions I would have asked, but I would want to get your final comments each. Let me start with you, Dr. Aiwa.
In summary, really, if you like, my inclusion across the continent, which is what we want, to achieve. And policy regulation coming from governments should really want to facilitate these developments, because they're good things. You know, they help us achieve the regional agenda, and also even plug into the achievement of the global agenda. And I think so because of that, they're good things. So what governments then now really need to be looking at, African governments, is to actually take intentional approaches. You know, we need to be deliberate, we need to be intentional in the way that we devise policies to achieve and leverage these technologies to use to facilitate financial inclusion. That would include a lot of what we've spoken about. That would include using regulation to ensure that we have robust regulatory regimes protecting privacy, investors, you know, etc. Okay, it would include building the right infrastructure from industry, from governments that can facilitate high internet and fast internet connectivity, 5G connectivity, things like that. It would also include education, because one of the things we don't want to do is to further increase the divide between those that are excluded and those that are included. And we don't want there to be a digital divide that is widened by this development. So education would be key, but all of this would require an intentional, deliberate and focused approach coming from African governments. But policy and regulation should facilitate innovation and not stifle innovation. Thank you.
All right, thanks a lot. Of course, I would have had a follow-up question about what you would advise distractors, to help us with to help us with pushing the policy direction. And sadly, when I look at time, Lemuel, let me come to you. And I know you had a reaction actually to that question on collaboration. There was a comment on that. So I would like you to do that and, of course, give us your submission, your final call to action on this particular subject.
Sure. So when we look at, I think it government, for instance, when we look at the Capital Markets Authority in Kenya, they have a sandbox, regulatory sandbox. So you can actually subscribe, join the sandbox, just let them know what you're doing, how they're able to look at how it affects the rest of the market. If there are any concerns, they're able to even help you through the process. So I think there's that element. Second bit I would point out is that there's a conversation. I think we had a very responsive central bank in Kenya that issues discussion papers well in advance, gives people enough time to actually respond, contribute. And so that when we actually either make it into regulation or we actually get to decide this is the direction that we're taking, it's actually something that's firm and concrete. So what I've realized is that no one wants to be left behind. It's good that the regulators have actually seen this. They're engaging the different communities as well, developers and all the people that are involved in the space. So I think it's a positive thing that we are seeing. The other bit on regulation, just to quickly point out, is when you look maybe in the past, maybe 3 or 4 years, quite a number of laws have been enacted. And when we talk of infrastructure, this is what people really want in terms of identity. Before we move to digital identity, we will first have to start with that foundational identity. So I think the government is facilitating a lot of this. Maybe not all of us might agree, because we usually complain a lot, but I think there's a lot that's going on, and it's on the positive side.
Do you want to mention it? Are you talking about Huduma, or what are you talking about?
Yes, I'll make a mention of Huduma, and I think the only reason people haven't realized I mean, like, for instance, the expressway is a few months from being completed. Yeah. So Huduma number is a critical infrastructure. It's just like roads and all. So you can, for instance, for financial institutions or even for taxi hailing apps, they would want to be sure of your identity, just to curb on fraud. Yeah, because we lose a lot of money on fraud when it comes to safety of users. So once we have that foundational identity, then we can move on to the next level. So we had a little bit of an issue where it was implemented before an actual law was put in place.
And actually,
but I think,
let me cut you short, because we have international audiences right here, some of them even physical. They would wonder, what is Huduma? What is this Huduma thing? Just in a minute, just tell them, then go on.
Okay, Huduma is basically digital identity. So just like similar thing to what India has as Aadhaar, different. So it's more on biometric. We don't use voice in Kenya, but it incorporates voice, your fingerprint, a retina scan. So it's just an immutable, or like a unique identifier, so that is able to identify you positively. So yes.
Did I cut short your submissions by asking you to define Huduma for the people? You
No.
Okay,
I think
all
I'm
right.
done.
Is that someone taking a selfie or putting up a hand? Okay, sorry. You know, the lights. It was a selfie. Okay. Is it a question or a selfie? Sorry, did I?
No, it is just a picture.
Oh, a picture. These things are sinking in, right? All right. Let me get to you, Elisa, as well. I want to hear your final comments on this, and if you have anything left out, what is it that you want the audiences today to know?
I'm an entrepreneur by nature. So for me, my final call would be really an appeal to the governments, all the governments in Africa, of course, because we are talking about Africa, but all over the world as well, to don't block the innovation, don't block the entrepreneurs. African entrepreneurs are amazing. They are the solution. They can find the solution to most of the problems, all the problems in Africa and export that all over the world. They have done it before, they've done in the past, and the main point for me is really allow them to express themselves. Of course, we need some regulation. We need to build again this bridge between government and disruptors, but don't stop them. Revolution are not always bad. There are good revolution, and I really believe that African entrepreneurs with blockchain and DeFi especially, they really can make the change in financial inclusion and the change in the system to grow and reach the goals that's all we want. So a better future and an equal future.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you so much for that, Elisa. I think I've not heard from Chris. So Chris, if you could as well give in your submissions.
Okay. So the future of finance. So I always say the currency of the future is the present. Because there's a lot of things that are sold in the present that will reap in the future. And the future of finance for Africa is the disruptors have come, the innovators have come, and they are trying to create, a future where finance is, more affordable, finance is more decentralized, and is giving, access to more, giving people access to more financial instruments. And I'll just want to key in to say the government needs to be able to trust that it's people, because the government, the people, the disruptors are also people that are working with the government. So the government needs to be able to, trust disruptors, engage us to be able to understand how these technologies work. I understand that they might be, because of policies, regulations, they have more risk because they are, leading over a large number of people, but they need to understand how we work. They need to be able to come to the table with open minds, because sometimes when they come to the table, they already have their preconceived notions. So they need to be able to come to the table with open minds to be able to learn and understand that in the end, a more innovative future is what's better for Africa, it's what's better for trade, and it's what most innovators seek to achieve. Thank you.
Just before I cross over to Andreas, I have one question for you. Because Nigeria, when it comes to matters crypto, is always ranking very high.
Yeah.
What's the secret? What is happening there?
So Nigerians are very disruptive people. So what that means is we are always people who are after innovation. We always look for the new thing. What's new in the market? What can give me access to more opportunities out there? Nigerians love opportunities, and the fact that blockchain crypto was something that could connect us to the global finance infrastructure. It was, it sold itself naturally, right? And another thing is because of a lot of influences, because influence is almost like a currency for trust, right? So a lot of influencers who, came up with crypto, they saw the work that we do at Patricia to be able to make crypto easy. So our message is really simple. We make crypto easy. We bring it from that high notion where people usually say, a lot of people are usually skeptical because finance is not, a lot of people they're poor. It's a poor continent in quotes, right? So we need to be careful to educate people as to how they can be included more in the global financial space through cryptocurrency. And because of that, Nigerians are very innovative to that fact, and they were really they embraced cryptocurrency because it depicted a part of the culture of the country.
Okay. All right. Sorry, I had someone say, every African country has an index of corruption, all right? So I'm not saying anything about Nigeria.
Okay.
But I hear it's safer when you can store even your cash. So guys, you need a safer place.
But the data says no. I think there was a report from Chainalysis, I think last year. You actually put it under 2%. Of the total cryptocurrencies in Africa. And that's, it speaks a lot of volume. It's just perception, okay. But the data doesn't say that.
Okay. Thanks for that, Sir Andreas. What I picked from you, I know you're about to give your closing remarks. You're very passionate about things working at least across Africa, because I could hear you out transacting around and walking around, taking observations. So I'd like you to not put anything back. Just speak your own perspective, what you see as the future, and even the recommendations you feel like should be done.
So I think the future of finance in Africa is all that we all have to work together on the future of finance in Africa. What we need to do is we need to decentralize, we need to take ownership to enablement as well. For example, when I think of how do I enable those kind of transactions, we said this so often here today, we need 4G, we need 5G, we need telecommunications. Why can't we decentralize the ownership of that and own it by ourselves and grow and build up on top of that? So I think if we do all of that, then the future of the finance in Africa belongs to Africa. So I think if we are taking this forward and we are driving this all together, then it's the best part, and it belongs to the disruptors, to the entrepreneurs all together, and the users, the people that are the community that is driving this, the regulators as well. We should not forget them, because it's also quite important that there is regulation. If you have a problem with your bank, you can go there, you have customer support, and if you don't get what you want, you call the central bank and they will help you, hopefully. But but it's all part of that we need to work together to make this all happen. And I think this is what is all about, this community, and this is, I think, what we can all drive forward, because otherwise the vision is great, but the implementation will never happen.
All right, there you have it. Sometimes it's interesting to just end the panel session just like that. And I just wanted to see whether there could be a reaction from people who, there's a reaction there. Could that reaction be like 60 seconds? Yeah, he was one of my panelists, and I know why I'm saying that, so not worry. As well, you're open for that reaction. Go ahead.
Okay, hi all.
Hi.
I'm Francis. My concern is, as much we are talking about technology, are we able to understand that in an age we are dominated with consumer? It is an age, we are living in an age dominated by consumer. So I'm asking this, as much as we are talking about this technology, implementing this technology, the disruptive technologies that can track, measure, and also respond to the key issues about the consumer behavior, do you think can break or make a business or our daily-to-day activities? That that include the businesses, the trading, and what have you.
Oh, okay. So you had a question. Lemuel, could you tackle that, Asa?
Sure. That's Francis. Great question. So how I look at it, I don't know if I got it right.
Okay, just it was about how we could use it, is it? I think that's what you're talking about, is it?
I'm asking, as much as we are talking about the technologies,
yes,
are we really concerned about the consumers? I mean, we are the consumer of these technologies, and we are living that age that everything that is done, it's all about consuming. Because these technologies, they have to have consumers, and we are the consumers here.
Sure. So just to quickly answer that, yes, we are the consumers. So where we have developers or anyone who's creating a product, one has to, of course, have a proper use case, be solving a problem, a particular problem. And we are also moving into an age of embedded finance. So for instance, if you are taking a cab and you're short of cash, you should be able to access credit on your phone or through the same mobile application, for instance. So if you're on social media and you're chatting with someone, you should be able to send them money. So if I can be able to send you an email, or I can maybe even chat with you at a fraction of a cost, it should be simpler. And I think that's where we are headed. Communication is really now at an advanced stage. So we similarly want to take money to the next level. So when we talk about the consumer, it's about having a product that resonates with the consumer. And I think when we talk about low transaction fees, I think that is one. Talking about DeFi, I think DeFi can earn you better yields as compared to whatever else is in the market because of low transaction costs, low sign-up fees or onboarding costs as well. So it boils down to the utility and the network effect. So once all that is there, I think there'll be greater adoption and the consumer will be much safer, much happier. And I believe, just to cap it also, looking at Agenda 2063 and for the Kenyans in the room, Vision 2030, it's all about an improved standard of life and a good quality of life and an improved standard of living.
All right, there you have it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I know we didn't want to end this, but we're already even past 5 o'clock, and I'm not yet ready to release you yet. But allow me to just allow the panelists to at least enjoy their cup of water as they take their seats. But please put your hands together for them. A round of applause, please, to them. Thank you so much, gentlemen in the house here. Thank you so much, Lisa, who was online, and also Dr. Iwa.